The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 140. No shame to speak of. The instant the other two appeared, Wanan and Wantong's expressions changed in unison. Wantong seized the lead, saying unhappily, "You're very mighty, Solan Tang. Who here has ill intent? This letter is His Majesty's personal statement, ordered for the cabinet ministers to read. I only came here on a decree, yet you dare to say I have ill intent. Ignoring the Emperor's command is the real ill intent here. Whoever wants to act as a traitorous subject will not be forgiven by the spring-gilt saber I hold." After that, he drew his saber out of its sheath with a sheng. As if responding to an order from their leader, the rest of the Jinyue also unsheathed their sabers simultaneously. The room instantly became a bit colder as a dense, murderous aura hitting one in the face. Even though the cabinet members were the height of the court and set policies for the empire's operations, they had never seen such a scenario before. Their expressions all twisted up. To say that they didn't feel uneasy would be false. It had to be said that Lu Ji was no fledgling that had only just left his home and would sign his name out of idiocy. A large portion of his reasoning was intimidating pressure like this. Also, his mind had been wavering to begin with, and once compelled by an external force, he had followed his gut. When Su Pu had refused to sign, he had been pressured similarly hard, and was also not great at arguing. Had Tang Fan and Lu Jian not arrived, he might truly have been half forced to sign, in the end. Thus, the second he had seen them show up, he had finally let out a sigh of relief. Faced with Wantong's antagonism, Tang Fan displayed a completely unrelenting serenity. This is an important and confidential area that not a single unrelated official is allowed to enter unauthorized. Violators will not be spared from punishment. Could you not read the words hanging outside, Commanding Officer Wan? Wantong sneered. What of them? I came on imperial order. Who could stop me? After the 7th year of Zhengtong, the Pavilion of Literary Profundity has been the working place of cabinet members. Even if His Majesty came here, he would need to send someone to report that ahead of time. Who or what gave you the misconception that you've become more important than the Son of Heaven? Tang Fan answered, tone indifferent. Tang Fan, stop being such a pest. I came here on His Majesty's approval, the other raged. You have his approval, but did your subordinates get it, too? Tang Fan sternly questioned. Don't claim that you don't even know that rule. Why are you not having them leave? When had Wantong ever been yelled at to his face, following his sister becoming the noble consort? He was dumbstruck for a moment, complexion green and red at the same exact time. His hand that gripped the hilt tightened, as if he wanted to lift it and bring it down upon Tang Fan. However, if he did that, whether Tang Fan would actually die was hard to say. Him daring to attack a minister in the pavilion was probably something his sister couldn't defend him from. Seeing that the situation was going poorly, Wanan quickly spoke up, I have something to. Before he could finish speaking, Tang Fan interrupted him by looking towards one of the Jinyue brought by Wantong. Shibo, you aren't supposed to be on duty today. For what reason did you show up here? His counterpart was clearly an unarmed civil official, but being swept over by that sharp-as-blade gaze made Shibo automatically take a step back. After that, he reacted at last, embarrassed. This subordinate. He was unable to give a justification, as Tang Fan had already looked towards another person, narrowing his eyes slightly. Xiaorui, he called out. This subordinate is on duty today. Xiaorui subconsciously replied. Tang Fan sneered. I didn't say you weren't. You're from the Southern Administrative Court Division, right? Since when have you all intervened in palace defense? Xiaorui immediately became speechless. Prior to entering the cabinet, Tang Fan had come and gone from the Jinyue's capital commanding officer office many times, and had come to recognize a majority of the faces therein. Immediately after calling out the names of several people, he questioned them on why they had appeared here. Sui Zhou's eminence in the Jinyue was quite high. Had it not been for Wan Tong pressing down on his head, he would long had been a true commanding officer. As it were, these people were also aware that Tang Fan had a deep friendship with Sui Zhou. As soon as they witnessed Tang Fan's interrogations, they recalled Sui Zhou's methods, immediately feeling some timidity. Wan Tong was about to die of rage. He was the commanding officer, so why, in Tang Fan's words, were his own words less useful than a commanding officer's? Looking at these Jinyue reactions, he had really lost a lot of face. With Tang Fan's interference, the hostile atmosphere dissipated some. Wan Tong could not allow him to keep speaking. He took a step forward at once. Relying on the oppression of his big and tall stature and the saber he held, he glared at Tang Fan with a sneer, trying to intimidate him. "Solan Tang, you speak quite a lot of nonsense. We're discussing proper business here, it's not for you to come in and reminisce with the Jinyue. Since His Majesty asked all of you to read the letter, you must fully understand his desire." Saying so, he went to grab Tang Fan's shoulder. Wan Tong had no intent to injure him, as he wasn't an idiot. He knew the consequences of hurting a cabinet minister. However, with things having unfolded like so, he needed to take advantage of the time that his side was on the high ground to quickly get the memorial jointly signed, else everything that they had done today would be a waste. Tang Fan was not slow to react. He took a step back when the other was first stretching out his hand, one of his own picking the letter up off the table. "Wan Tong, would you also have the nerve to confirm that with me, in the Emperor's presence? His Majesty had you deliver the letter, and you brought a huge group of Jinyue to menace court members. I want to see for myself who gave you this enormous courage." His voice and expression were harsh, his typical smile gone from his face, and he had a certain valor that could terrify. "Yes, Wan Tong. Even if His Majesty told you to deliver the letter, he would never have let you bring so many people in there. Leave, quickly." Lu Jian also shouted. Talking was slow, actions were quick. Lu Ji seized the time when no one was paying attention to get up, snatch the memorial that had been set in front of Su Pu, and then, with a shredding sound, he ripped it in two. At that moment, everyone's eyes moved from Tang Fan and Wan Tong to him, wide-eyed and tongue-tied as they stared at the torn-asunder memorial he held. Wanan grew dreadfully enraged, to the point that he called Lu Ji by his derogatory name. "Lu Cotton Flower, are you courting death?" "What I tore wasn't His Majesty's letter but a mere memorial," Lu Ji answered passively. "It was an accidental slip of my hand. I'm afraid you will need to rewrite it, Yuan Weng." Saying so, he stuffed the memorial he had signed into his pocket. Wanan was near about struck stupid by this man's audacity. Clearly, he had written his name down a moment before, but when Tang Fan made a ruckus, he had gone back on his word. Even if he had regrets, a dignified Solan still had the cheek to do something like tear a memorial, right in front of everybody. It was not only Wanan, but all the others that were staring at Lu Ji in a daze, unable to react at all. His nickname of Lu Cotton Flower had not been in vain. Someone that could remain unscathed beneath many years of continuous verbal and written castigation by censors would have to be someone beyond the average. When it came to thick faces, if vice head of the cabinet Lu had second place, no one in the great Ming would dare to claim first place. With that rip, Wanan knew their great momentum was gone. Like Lu Ji, the reason why they had been deceived was, for one, that Wanan's group had put in a strong first hit, and for two, there had been the pressure of the nearby Jinyue. Something like this could not be repeated, because as soon as the others woke up, there would be no second chance. Furthermore, Lu Ji had just destroyed the joint memorial, which was his ploy to completely deny his part. As for Su Pu, with Tang Fan and Lu Jian around, he was even more unlikely to concede. All of the advantages that the Wan group had racked its brains to build were now dumped into the river, vanished without a trace. Wanan's mood was a bit down. He sat right down, not even wanting to say anything. Wan Tong was of a similar mood. He tightly gripped the hilt of his saber, itching to leap up and cut Lu Ji and Tang Fan into bits. However, logic told him not to do that, so he took extreme effort to endure, the fat on his face trembling. In the end, he could only puff hot air out of his nostrils, turned and leave. With their leader going, those he had brought with him naturally followed after. "Hold it!" Tang Fan announced. "Envoy Wan, aren't you forgetting something?" Wan Tong had a breath of noxious air stuck in his chest that wanted to come out but couldn't. Hearing this, he turned around to spit out nastily, "What would I forget?" After so many years, the people of the court had long come to an agreement. Every day that Consort Wan existed was a day the Wan group would not fall. As a core of the Wan group and her brother, it didn't matter if Wan Tong whipped up a massive catastrophe, as long as he didn't want to overthrow the great Ming or plot a rebellion, the emperor wouldn't do anything to him. Those that opposed him generally wouldn't have a good end, either. For that reason, even if people refused to yield to the Wan group, they would always stay far away from it, and wouldn't provoke it if they didn't have to. Like today, for example, even though the group had lost and failed at the last moment, Wan Tong was still that arrogant Wan Tong who no one could provoke. Everyone had been happy to see this pestilence got off, never having expected that Tang Fan would take it upon himself to provoke him. Su Pu was somewhat worried, opening his mouth in want to help Tang Fan with mediation so that he wouldn't offend Wan Tong severely, but when he saw Lu Jian watching Wan Tong with an indignant look, he was forced to swallow the words in his mouth back down, smiled bitterly on the inside, and feel himself to be too much of a pushover. No wonder Tang Fan and Lu Jian had been blocked outside. Only he had been let in, and if was then forced to sign, he wouldn't have had Lu Ji's shamelessness to repent. He would have just dug a hole and buried himself in it. At that point, he knew that Tang Fan's method was the right one. Stately ministers getting pushed around by someone would only cause others to think them powerless, should their hues not be returned to them. How could they lead the officials, then? Tang Fan raised the letter, saying coldly, "Barging into the pavilion without authorization means you should face the rod and reproach, to say nothing of you rushing in with Chenghua. If the cabinet was to allow just anyone to come and go as they see fit, where is the law of our forebears? Where is the law of the court?" Wan Tong glared at Tang Fan, a dense wish to kill in his eyes. In that moment, there was no doubt in anyone's minds that if he could have, he likely would have cut Tang Fan down. Lu Jian had even taken a step forward, planning to come up and stop him in case things got dire. However, Wan Tong ultimately did nothing. Despite his lack of good traits and his reliance on his sister to reach his current position, he was not an idiot completely without sophisticated thought. "What do you want, then?" he asked, teeth bared in extreme anger. "Go with me to confirm how right you are with the emperor, or apologize to all the Solons present," Tang Fan answered mildly. "Your choice. Solon Tang, you've set your heart on opposing me, right?" Wan Tong particularly enunciated. Tang Fan shook his head. "Why would I oppose you for no reason? I'm managing affairs that are well within my position. I only want to protect the dignity of the court and the cabinet. If word of this spreads out, future generations will imitate you. What accusation will you deserve then, commanding officer Wan?" Wan Tong had no argument, because Tang Fan's every word had stabbed him in his weak point. This had been plotted by the Wan group to begin with. First using the celestial phenomena to build momentum, having Ji Xiao and Li Zishan hint for the emperor to depose the crowned prince, then having Wan Tong put forth a proposal for the cabinet to take the lead in this, in order to lessen the talk the deposition would trigger and cause the emperor to agree. This had been something Wan Tong had long discussed with Wan and them. Once Wan Tong had received the emperor's approval, he was to bring the letter over, but to force the other cabinet members that were not with the Wan group to agree, he would also bring a squadron of Chenghua. And since Tang Fan was holding on to that point without letting go, if a fuss was made before the emperor, Wan Tong would be in the wrong. Silence stretched out in the discussion hall. Everyone looked at the two of them, Wan Tong especially. The latter stared at Tang Fan, his scorching gaze seeming to want to glare a hole through him, but it seemed to have no effect on him, the other's aura never ebbing in the slightly. It gave Wan Tong the very powerless feeling of punching a cotton flower. After a long deadlock, Wan Tong could only say, "This humble official acknowledges my mistake. Please forgive me, gentlemen." His attitude in admitting his error was not much different than one for demanding a debt, but being able to force Wan Tong to bow his head was something that had never happened before. In that split second, everyone had a subtle feeling. It wasn't towards Wan Tong, but Tang Fan. In the cabinet, one could pick out the qualifications of any single member and they would be higher than Tang Fan. And yet, at a critical juncture, it was he who had maintained the cabinet's dignity. Wan Tong left after he spoke, but before he did, he gave Tang Fan a vicious glare. The rancor in that look could shock the heart. Tang Fan did not call out for him again, allowing the team of Chenghua to leave, then joining up with Lu Jian because they had to apologize to the head of the cabinet for being late this morning. Everyone's minds were still immersed in what had just happened. Who cared if they were late? Wanan should have hated these two for ruining the Wan group's plan, but what purpose would there be in saying anything further? Opportunities were fleeting. If they were missed, they were missed. Like so, a massive incident that could have raised great waves was invisibly eliminated. By the time the other officials learned what had gone on in the cabinet this morning, the storm would long be gone. Many felt as though this was not the end of things, inevitably apprehensive at heart. All levels of society spoke a lot of it, like mountain rain threatening to come over. After returning home from the palace, Solan Tang, who was placed at the heart of this vortex, just casually strolled to his sister's home to see his nephew, go over his coursework and stay for dinner. It wasn't until Suizhou, who came off from work and went looking for him, that he said goodbye to Tang Yu, her son, and Adong. Pelted with the ambiguous smiles of his sister and Adong, Tang Fan somewhat exasperatedly allowed their teasing. They had no idea what had gone on in the cabinet that morning, nor did they know what direction the situation had developed to, tense on the inside, lax on the outside. If they did, Suizhou wouldn't have so easily come and picked him up. Tang Fan didn't wish for his relatives to worry about him. He had basically completely gone hostile with the Wan group. Although this morning he had looked majestic from all sides, where even Wan Tong had bowed his head to him, the Wan group hated him to the core and would certainly not let things lie. The next vicious battle was already brewing. After Wan Tong had left the pavilion, the cabinet meeting couldn't proceed as normal. Soon afterward, Tang Fan and Lu Jian brought the letter into the palace and harshly complained about Wan Tong to the emperor. On account of Wan Tong having acted improperly, him barging into the pavilion with Chenghua was very likely to get people talking, the crowned prince's whole deposition aside. The emperor had no way to excuse Wan Tong's action and instead, was forced to console the cabinet and berate Wan Tong. The issue of the letter was left up in the air. Suizhou had not been idle when this happened, of course. The Chenghua was not entirely under his control right now, with a portion still loyal to Wan Tong. Basically, Wan Tong and him each had one half of the influence in the Chenghua, with Suizhou having a slight advantage. Still, the Chenghua was not Suizhou's whole domain. It had been due to Wan Tong holding a real commanding envoy position that he had been able to mobilize people for the palace. After the emperor had reprimanded Wan Tong, Suizhou had seized the chance to reorganize the Chenghua again. Such was why he looked slightly worn down upon appearing before Tang Fan. "Have you eaten yet?" Tang Fan breezily took the lantern he held. Suizhou shook his head. "I'm not hungry." "You're not hungry yet, you must eat." "I haven't been to the wonton stall in the city's north for a long time." "Let's go." "I want a bowl of it, too." "Didn't you just eat your fill?" Tang Fan's face did not go red, nor did his heart jump at being seen through. "I didn't eat much just now, really. I can have some scallion yubbing." The wonton stall still stood. Because the day was getting later, the customers were gradually dwindling. Tang Fan hadn't been here for some time, yet the owner still recognized him at a glance, enthusiastically calling for them to sit. "Sir, that beardless friend of yours seems to have not come here for a long time," he casually chatted. "You still remember him?" Tang Fan asked with a smile. The vendor smiled back. "Of course, I do. Last time he was here, he fought with the Eastern Depot while I was here. It was quite impressive, and difficult to forget. The Eastern Depot has always been arrogant, so that fight was pretty satisfying. The Eastern Depot is under new management. It acts very low-key now, not arrogant." "Really? No wonder I haven't seen them come over in such a long time," the vendor said, confused, then slapped his forehead. "Look at this memory of mine, when I start talking, I don't stop. What would you two like to eat? This lowly one will go make it. Bring 2 bowls of wontons, and 1 scallion yubbing." "1 bowl," Suizhou said. 1½ bowls. 1 bowl. The vendor was quiet. In the end, Tang Fan admitted defeat. 1 bowl, then. Listen to him. I want 2 yubbing, though. The vendor smiled apologetically at that. "I'm sorry, Sir Tang. The yubbing are sold out." Seeing his whole being appear to droop listlessly, Suizhou had a smile in his eyes, lightly patting his hand. "It isn't good to overeat in the evening. I'll share the bowl with you later." Solan Tang brought all of his haggling drive. "Then 2 bowls." Suizhou ignored him. The vendor came over bearing 2 cups of tea. "Drink, sirs. The wontons are in the po, and will be ready soon." The tea was very average quality and incomparable to what they typically drank, but Suizhou didn't mind taking a sip of his. Whenever he had business out of town, he would experience unforgiving environments. A cup of coarse tea was nothing to speak of. "Huayan might be heading for Nanjing," he said. Tang Fan was caught off guard, his motion to get his own teacup stopped midway. What happened? He urged His Majesty to not listen to the celestial phenomena statement and spoke up for the crowned prince. His Majesty got angry, so he sent him to be an incense minder at the Ming tombs. Incense minder was a real position for tomb guarding, responsible for putting incense on the memorial tablets every day. The dignified supervisor of ceremony management being assigned to watch over tombs in Nanjing was a treatment as different as sky and land. Most importantly, everyone knew that Huayan was quite protective of the crowned prince. This development would certainly deal a heavy blow to the power of the crowned prince's faction. After Huayan, who else would dare to speak up for the prince? Tang Fan creased his brow. "What about Wang Ji? Is he all right?" "For now, but the situation right now isn't great. You should be more careful." Tang Fan nodded. "I know. You, too." While they spoke, piping hot wontons were brought out. Tang Fan's expression immediately changed from deadly serious to severely salivating. He eagerly waited for Suizhou to bow his head to spoon some broth, gaze too burning for anyone to ignore. Suizhou had to pass the brimming spoon, which had 1 wonton in it, over to the other's mouth. "Don't do that. I'll eat by myself," Master Tang said, putting on an air. Suizhou turned his spoon right around and brought it to his own mouth. Not caring if anyone was watching, Tang Fan grabbed the other's wrist, then brought the spoon to his side, finally getting the in limbo wonton into his mouth. The taste of the chicken broth and wonton flooded his taste buds, fully satisfying him at last. "Give me another," he said, sweet-talking Suizhou. The latter was disinclined to acknowledge him, simply bowing his head to start eating. Unlike Tang Fan's peace within hardship, the emperor was in an especially horrible mood right about now. He had just started falling asleep, then had a nightmare. The scene of his dreams was hard for him to shake off. Therefore, the frail emperor disregarded the chilly weather and left his bedroom that had the warm earth dragon of a Kong, descended the white jade steps and walked aimlessly down the long palace path. Towering palace halls in daylight had transformed into oscillating black behemoths, hidden within darkness by night's cover. In the massive forbidden city, were candles to be lit up all over the place, the expenses for it would undoubtedly be immense. To cut costs, palace-goers had to reduce the amount of candles used. From far away, the speckles of palace lights made the atmosphere all the more mysterious. With Huai not here, no one dared to come up and persuade him. A few young eunuchs had no choice but to follow the emperor as he wandered all around, one with a meaningful look already turning his head and going to inform the noble consort, quick as flight. The emperor's movements were doubtlessly abnormal, but ever since he started believing in Daoist magic, this was not the first time such a curious scene had been seen. Your Majesty. Seeing him walk farther and farther, a eunuch trembled uneasily. He had wanted to speak up to advise him, only for the emperor to turn his head and stop his words, the look in his eyes extraordinarily harsh, unlike a sick person's at all. Silence, the emperor said. We heard something like someone calling for us. Why would anyone be calling the emperor's taboo name? And why would anyone call for him in the middle of the night? The eunuch was truly terrified, not daring to speak any more. Then, the emperor turned many corners, going all around. It was unknown how far they had walked, until the eunuch actually did hear some whispering at a corner up ahead. He automatically lightened his footsteps and held his breath. Once he heard the contents of the words clearly, his complexion changed. End chapter. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 141. Thigh hugging, for real. The palace was utterly silent at night. The cries of bugs and birds, and even the sound of footsteps coming from far away were audible, likely due to heavy echoes. It had snowed that night, leaving a thick layer of white snow on the ground. The dim candlelight illuminated a large range by means of the snow's contrast. The woven solace of black silk shoes noiselessly stepped upon it, the cold wind happening to occasionally bring words right into the emperor's ears. The crowned prince has an ominous, yet sturdy fate. I heard that he was born poisoned in the womb, yet he ended up surviving. That's nothing. You don't know that when he was sealed as the crowned prince, his birth mother died. Birth mother? Consort G. Ah, even his mother has passed. Does His Majesty really want to depose him this time? Isn't everyone saying that those celestial signs really are related to the crowned prince? SHHH. What are you afraid of? It's spread all over the outside by now, and it wasn't us who said it first. Every one of them has said as much. Think about it, His Majesty's health being lacking is related to the crowned prince too, right? Because his fate is ominous, his mother passed, and... Hearing this, the face of the eunuch following the emperor morphed. He immediately stepped forth to prevent the others from continuing to speak such taboo. However, as soon as he took a few steps, his arm was pulled. He turned his head to see that the emperor had actually grabbed him. Not only that, he was stopping him from making a sound, a harsh look in his eyes. The eunuch was a little worried. He had no idea what the emperor was thinking. He had grown up in the palace and knew that he had heard tonight, he should not have, and even if he did, he had to convey that he didn't remember it. Under normal circumstances, if the two speakers ahead of them were caught, they would be beaten to death. Now, however, the emperor said nothing, only standing there quietly to listen for a bit. It wasn't under the two switched to chatting about other things that he turned around, going back along the road he had come. He wasn't going to get to the bottom of the two's crimes. He was hurried after. His footsteps were unexpectedly quick, almost unlike someone still bedridden. Your Majesty, the eunuch had to call out. The emperor seemed not to hear him though, going faster and faster. He didn't stop, not until he reached the steps of the Palace of Heavenly Clarity. Someone was standing on the steps, looking back at him from far away. Upon seeing the other, The emperor's expression suddenly eased, showing a tenderness that he had never unveiled before even to his own mother. He took a few steps up. Out of fear, the eunuch followed close after, yet didn't dare to reach out and help him, fearing that the emperor would step on air and suddenly take a tumble. Thankfully, no such thing happened. The one welcoming them stood before the palace entryway, reached her hands out to the emperor and caught his own firmly. "Why have you gone for a walk so late at night wearing so little, your majesty? What if you get even sicker?" Expression sinking, her tone of voice towards the emperor even somewhat impetuous, but he didn't care at all, giving a reliant smile. "Sister Wan, you should come sleep with us tonight. Without you, we cannot rest." A 40-year-old man, using a spoiled tone of voice, if those words came out of an emperor, they would be even more terrifying. However, the other was clearly used to him talking like that, not softening her tone or posture because of them, still persistent. "Your harem has so many beauties in it. As long as you want it, there will someone new accompanying you every night. Why would you still need an old bag like me?" The emperor smiled. "You are not old. In our mind, you will never be old." The two held hands, leaning on each other as they entered the palace's back bedroom. The eunuch quietly wiped his sweat off. Looking at the tall woman holding the emperor's hand, he had some inexplicable awe within. She wasn't pretty, nor did she need to take care in currying favor with the emperor while interacting with him, unlike other concubines. On the contrary, she laughed when she wanted to, raged when she wanted to, and even made noisy scenes when angered, giving the emperor no face, and the latter tolerated it. Even with the princes and princesses being born in succession, no one in the harem could yet replace her position. Even though the woman was a year older than the present Empress Dowager, to the point that the Empress Dowager would not allow her to be empress for the life of her, her status otherwise, in all degrees, had long surpassed the position of the current empress. At the emperor's insistence, no one inside the palace or outside in the court could change that fact. Despite not having a young, jade-like appearance, in the emperor's heart, she would always be one of a kind. Making the connection of the emperor having heard those taboo words yet not reacting in the slightest, the eunuch's heart thumped. He couldn't help but think on the inside, is the crowned prince really going to be deposed this time? Most people had no inkling of what had happened in the palace, let alone what the emperor had heard and what idea it had produced. The 12th month of the 22nd year of Chenghua was at its end. It was destined to be a year and month of unrest. Still, regardless of how tense the situation was in secret, life that should be lived was going to be lived. Changing out the crowned prince made no difference to average citizens, nor did it have any influence on the majority of officials. Not long after Peng Yushun's promotion to Minister of Justice, according to standard practice, even if one was subdued in actions and didn't want to wantonly celebrate, it was always a must to invite all of his bureau's colleagues and subordinates for a dinner. Everyone toiled in working for their higher-ups. From now on, they would be interacting all the time, and as officials, they couldn't elect to say nothing ever. The dinner was set in the Xianqi restaurant. Peng Yushun invited Tang Fan, as well. This was not only because Tang Fan now held power in the cabinet for the Ministry of Justice, but also because Peng Yushun would not have risen to be the minister, had it not been for Tang Fan's recommendation. He might have a long seniority in the ministry, but there had always been others pushing down on his head. Before, it had been Liang Wenhua, and then later, it had been someone else. Tang Fan could have held the simultaneous post of Minister of Justice, so, if he hadn't relinquished authority himself, the title of minister would not be Peng Yushun's to have, no matter what. In light of that, Peng Yushun acknowledged the favor and felt deep gratitude towards Tang Fan. When it came to daily work, he had reversed his previous style of muddling through life to do all he could in keeping up with Tang Fan's pace. What happened above, those below would imitate. Mr. Minister and the cabinet had a harmonious relationship. No one needed to waste energy on relentless wrangling and social niceties, and their day-to-day efficiency had naturally improved by a lot. Amongst the corresponding combinations between the cabinet and 6 ministries, the Tang Fan, Pen Yushun pair could be said to have the utmost of rapport. The Ministry of Justice had many workers, but this time, only officials at 6th rank and above were invited. There were enough to seat 2 tables full. Pen Yushun had reserved a private room in Xianqi restaurant ahead of time, which happened to have just that. After getting off work today, Ministry of Justice officials of lower rank had mutually determined to arrive in succession. There had always been an unwritten rule in officialdom that those of higher ranks were to come later. Therefore, after the administrators and chiefs had sat down, higher officials like the assistant ministers and minister were yet to arrive. Tang Fan actually didn't intend to be late, but he was still in a cabinet meeting right now. Those that had arrived first had nothing to do, simply chatting about anything and everything, with somehow the topic getting to Tang Fan. As the least in experience of all the present cabinet members, he was the subject of envy for many. Entry into the cabinet aside, even if one looked at officials above 3rd rank, there might not be anyone as young as him. Amongst many were present right now that had interacted with him back in the ministry, no one had believed that a minor, 5th rank chief would be able to fly to this height after only a few years. Looking at him, then at themselves, inevitably gave rise to some mixed emotions of being rueful, or wronged. Thinking of the very beginning, when he had offended Liang Wenhua, everyone had believed that his official career was finished. At best, he would have come back as a minor administrator of some locality, impossible for him to return to the capital without great opportunities and great luck. In a wink, he had gone to the inspectorate, then become their overhead superior yet again, where everyone could only look up to him. The overwhelming majority of them would never reach his height in all their lives. In spite of everyone saying that being an official was hard and simmering qualifications in the cabinet was even harder, if they could switch places, they would all probably want to go into the cabinet right now. Junkai, has Solan Tang told you anything about the recent celestial phenomena? As soon as He Xian sat down, he heard someone ask him that. As the younger brother of Tang Fan's brother-in-law, when He Xian had just entered the ministry, many had been genuinely jealous of him. However, after not too long, everyone had learned about the separation of Lady Tang and He Xian's older brother, and their views had quickly changed. They had felt that the He family really didn't have any pearls of wisdom, to have failed in keeping those in-laws. In private, they had also joked about what kind of shrew Tang Fan's sister must have been, for He Xian's brother to have found it hard to keep going on like that and want to separate from her. After that, Tang Fan's path had gone on many twists and turns, ups and downs. Everyone had then believed that the He family were really clairvoyant, knowing that Tang Fan's career would be rocky and severing the relationship early, so that they wouldn't be implicated by him. Unexpectedly, in a blink of the eye, Tang Fan had entered the cabinet. The speed of this change was stupefying, leaving one unable to react at all. At that moment, some had been under the impression that the Tang and the He families got along like fire and water, wanting to use the occasional chances Tang Fan walked about the Ministry of Justice to make He Xian stumble in public, thus pleasing Solan Tang. The latter had not appreciated that, however, instead being very cordial to He Xian while everyone was watching. He would also ask him about many things related to daily work in the Ministry of Justice, which was not at all the look of 2 enemy families. No one understood anything at that point, but they thereby understood one truth: don't go patting a horse's rump to flatter it, because you never know when you'll end up accidentally patting the horse's leg. Beyond that, Solan Tang was not the sort that liked to avenge private matters by public means, nor bring grudges into official business. Any wish to use He Xian as a means of currying favor or attacking Tang Fan was not going to bear fruit. Recently, with the frequent celestial oddities, Tang Fan and Lu Zhang had publicly clashed with Wan Tong. That event had long gone the rounds. Lu Ji ripping up the joint memorial was another object of laughter. Even if they had no direct connection to it, the crown prince's deposition involved all of society. This fuss in the cabinet, Huai getting sent to Nanjing and the emperor's unclear attitude made everyone uneasy, though they said nothing. There was always a hope that they could get some confidential information a bit sooner, else they would still be scared and confused when the weather changed again. Thus, upon hearing this, everyone successively turned to look at He Xian. The latter just shook his head with a smile. I haven't met with Solentang in many days. Furthermore, with something as important as that, even if we did meet, why would he tell me? They all felt that what he said made sense. Why would such a thing be talked about just wherever? Even so, Tang Fan's attitude was evident, judging by his crossing of swords with Wan Tong. Solentang very likely fell on the crowned prince's side. The other two Solons, Lu Jian and Su Pu, ought to be the same. Everyone here had grown up reading the books of sages, and the crowned prince was completely above board, the eldest heir that met every criterion for heir apparent. They feared the might of the Wan group, and many dared not say so aloud, but they doubtlessly leaned relatively more towards the crowned prince. Tang Fan had spoken out of a sense of righteousness. The instant news of the Wan group's fall in prestige spread, a lot of people had promptly slapped their tables and cried out in cheer. He had said what they had been too scared to say and did what they had been too scared to do, all else aside. That valor and courage was enough to incite a lot of admiration. And yet, as soon as He Xian said that, someone nearby huffed coldly. Someone angling for fame like him would never dare to rashly speak of heavenly omens. What sort of idiot would say something that tactless, knowing well that Tang Fan would come here? Everyone looked over at the sound, then immediately had an epiphany. It had been Su Bang, chief of the Zhejiang office. This man was attached to the Wan group, so he found Tang Fan displeasing to the eye every which way. The others didn't want to provoke him, but He Xian could not keep his silence, raising his brows. Angling for what fame? Do explain, Chief Su. Su Bang side-eyed him. What happened in the cabinet that day has long gone around. Who doesn't know about it? If he really was full of righteousness, why did he not display his strength in speaking up for the crowned prince, instead of only holding on to the rule that outsiders could not enter the pavilion of literary profundity? What could that be, if not angling for fame? In reality, this was Tang Fan's spot of brilliance. Under the circumstances that had been, Wan Tong hadn't said anything about whether the crowned prince should be deposed. Had Tang Fan brought up the crowned prince, it would have instead caused a pointless dispute that would have easily given others a source of gossip. However, in Su Bang's mouth, Tang Fan had instead become a villain seeking glory and adding to his own reputation. He Xian sneered at him. Since you're so righteous, Chief Su, then the next time someone acts unfavorably towards the crowned prince, you should step out and speak on his behalf. As a great Ming official, our loyalty should be to His Majesty. The crowned prince is the succeeding heir now, but he still has to actually succeed. Su Bang answered, refusing to show weakness. What's inappropriate with what Solentang said, then? The fight between him and commanding officer Wan was a debate of court laws. About how much was for the crowned prince's sake. He imitated that look of his brother's that had once angered his father, a disdainful expression that said, idiots aren't worth speaking with. It made Su Bang angry enough to choke. However, before he could think up a retort, the door of the private room opened. Minister Peng Yushun and his assistant ministers walked in, escorting Tang Fan. Everyone got up to bow. The dispute between Su Bang and He Xian left unresolved. The former had only dared to talk smack behind his back. To Tang Fan's face, he had to properly get up and greet him like all the rest. Tang Fan and them had no idea that before they got there had been a scene of quarrel playing out. Noticing that the ambience was a bit rigid, Tang Fan believed that their arrivals had made everyone less at ease, so he joked. Minister Peng is treating us to dinner today. None of you need to be polite, so just order whatever good food and wine you want to eat, or else you'll regret it. Hearing that, everyone started laughing cheerfully. Try to leave me some money, sir, lest I have to eat the northwestern wind this month, Pen Yushun jest as well. Tang Fan laughed. Never fear now that the cold winter is about to pass, you'll be drinking in spring breezes no matter what. Following a few jokes, the atmosphere slowly came alive. Everyone raised their cups, one after the other, stepping up in turn to toast Pen Yushun's promotion. They didn't forget the nearby Tang Fan, of course, as he was also a protagonist today. After 3 rounds of wine, dishes came out sequentially. Minister Pen was a generous man, feeling that his subordinates had spent a long time being impoverished capital officials. He made use of today to order very many dishes. The skills of Xianqi restaurant's cooks were above the norm, each dish being incomparably exquisite. Upon witnessing the higher UPS speak in low voices, everyone quit stepping up to bother them, beginning to chow down at great speed. Tang Fan coming to this occasion gave Pen Yushun face in and of itself, meaning he wasn't required to stay until the end of the dinner. Him sitting there would make everyone else afraid to let loose. Therefore, after drinking a few cups of wine, he got up to take his leave. Pen Yushun sent him off at the private room's doorways, wanting to see him off outside, but Tang Fan refused. Xianqi restaurant was famed in the capital, many feeling that treating people to a meal here was impressive and dignified. In comparison, Xianyuan restaurant out around the back was a bit more out of reach. It was currently the beginning of lanterns on, a commotion going on inside and out. This was the second floor, with private rooms all about. The soundproofing had been made well, no matter how noisy it was outside, only faint sounds would get in, not affecting the nearby customers. Tang Fan came here often and was long familiar with the place. He had no need to find a worker to lead him out. When he left the private room, he walked straight in the direction of the stairwell. However, after going no more than a few steps, the door to the private room next to him suddenly opened, the laughter and noise from inside pouring into his ears. Before he had time to furrow his brow, a scented wind flew at his face from the side. Immediately following that, a flower was before his eyes, and his shoulder was bumped into hard. He automatically peeled back a few steps, only coming to a stop at contact with a nearby balustrade, because there was an extra person in his arms. "Thank you for your help, young master. Can this lowly woman ask you for a favor?" The one he held spoke coquettishly, lifting her white jade face up, her slightly knit, painted brows like faraway mountains, very moving. Skin came into contact, her hand that Tang Fan held delicate and boneless. A warm fragrance wafted over from her clothes, which would make any normal man's heart soften up. Tang Fan was doubtlessly normal, but after witnessing Xiao Wu's divine beauty, he felt that the woman in front of him was nothing more than average. He wanted to let her go, but the other's hand came out of her sleeve to grab his own, her expression beseeching. The hair around her face was a bit disordered, her lips red and swollen. She had obviously just experienced something in the private room. Still, Tang Fan pulled her hand off. "Miss." Before he could say the men and women aren't to be close line, 2 more people quickly came out of the private room. "You whore. You been out for not even a minute and you already hooked up with another man." Hearing that voice, the woman trembled, hiding behind Tang Fan more desperately and hugging him around the waist, unable to be pulled off. "Young master, help me," she said, quivering. The others grew even angrier at seeing this, pointing at Tang Fan and hollering, "You dare to snatch my woman right in front of me, pretty boy? Are you tired of being alive?" Tang Fan frowned, then shouted let go, but at the woman. She obviously hadn't expected that he would be unmoved by beauty and got scared into letting go. Tang Fan immediately pushed her off, but she was quick to react, jumping forth to hug him tightly on the thigh and sobbing out, "Young master, you clearly just said that you were willing to stick up for me. Why are you going back on your word now?" Tang Fan was speechless for a short moment, then said to the young dandy that came out of the private room, "Don't you see? She's bugging me. I was only passing by." The man grinned out of anger at hearing that. If you weren't acquainted before this, why would she seek help from you alone? Are you saying you're not an adulterer? His voice and this commotion was making many people from the surrounding private rooms poke their heads out to watch. Someone from Peng Yushun's side also came out. After seeing Tang Fan, they suffered a start, quickly went back in to say something, and then everyone else hurried out after not too long. Someone recognized the young man. Isn't that Solon Yin's son? Hearing that, everyone reached an understanding. Young Master Yin was an unrestrained fop of the capital. The capital had many fops, but the reason young Master Yin was famous was not only because he was Yin Zhi's son but because he could play around. From the capital's flower lanes to pubs and gambling dens, traces of young Master Yin's figure never faded. In some aspects, he was even more well known than his father. Clearly, he had been pleasure-seeking with his rogue friends at Xianyun restaurant only for it to have been cut off halfway. Everyone looked at Yin Qi, then at Tang Fan, then at the woman behind Tang Fan. Things were hard to judge for a while. That woman had good looks, but Solon Tang wouldn't be so ravenous as to vie for her affections with someone else in a place like this, right? Tang Fan couldn't pry her off, so he simply let her go. If he used too much force, then when he pulled her off, she would pull his pants off along with her. That would be a loss of face beyond description. A grand Solon getting his pants pulled by a woman in a restaurant, which dozens of people on scene had witnessed with their own eyes, that scene might get recorded in the history books for later generations to laugh at. Seeing all this, Peng Yushun said sternly, "Young Master Yin, this is a cabinet member that works alongside your father. Solon Tang only came here today at my invitation." If Tang Fan had just exited a private room to grab Yin Qi's woman, he would never believe that. However, were this to get out, no one else would bother about the specifics, only taking Tang Fan's conduct as dishonorable. If this court's censors got words, they wouldn't need actual facts to make a huge mess, turning it into a real stain on Tang Fan's reputation. However, Yin Qi didn't entertain him at all, looking down on him with his chin up. "And who are you?" "I am Minister Peng Yushun of Justice," he answered, restraining his anger. Yin Qi huffed. "So what? Can a man of power rely on his status to snatch someone else's woman?" Peng Yushun's nose nearly went crooked in annoyance. What snatching? Who was snatching? This was simple, a reversal of black and white, an outright annoyance. Yin Qi sneered at Tang Fan again. "Tang, let me tell you this, you better return my woman to be as quick as possible, else it'll spread outside that a dignified Solon snatched someone else's woman at a restaurant. We'll see what end you have, then." Even if his father was also in the cabinet, and even if his father ranked higher than Tang Fan, people like him not at all impressed and bold enough to set off a bunch of rot at Tang Fan's face were not many. A lot of customers had been drawn by the commotion. Even those on the first floor had ascended to watch, many people crowding inside and out. Tang Fan still had a woman holding his thigh. Those that didn't know the inside story had already begun to cook up scenario of fighting over a woman, especially after they learned of Tang Fan's identity. Scenarios like that would only get more outrageous the more they spread. By tomorrow, there might be rumors that he had an illegitimate child with this woman. And, if those rumors got more fervent, censors would denounce him, and he would have to present his resignation according to standards. Under this sky, there was no one apart from Lu Cottonflower that could persistently refuse to walk after being denounced by censors. A modest nobleman like Tang Fan would be likely to do such a thick-faced thing even less. Him being at the bottom of the cabinet lineup aside, his open rebuke of Wantong had already spread all over the capital. Without him, those few in the cabinet would not be enough to contend with the Wan group, and the Crowned Prince faction's power would also be badly hit. Even Huayan had been demoted and departed from the capital. If Tang Fan left as well, who would be able to stop the Wan group? Thinking of that, Peng Yushun's heart felt a shock. He really couldn't be derided as overthinking it. Yin Qi was Yin Zhi's son, and Yin Zhi was a backbone of the Wan group. Now that Tang Fan and the party were irreconcilable, who could not tell the connection between the two? What Pen Yushan thought of, Tang Fan had thought of, too. For that reason, he didn't pull the woman off, nor even look at her, focusing his attention solely on Yin Qi from start to finish. Yin Qi was being a hassle, and getting stared at by Tang Fan gave him a guilty conscience. "What are you looking at?" he asked, putting on a show of strength. "Are you trying to deny it? I'm telling you, I'm a law-abiding civilian. Don't think you can bully me just because you're a cabinet minister." Those words could make a pig laugh. If young Master Yin here was law-abiding, then there was not a single good citizen in all the land. Still, he had deliberately emphasized the words cabinet minister, in order to make everyone know what Tang Fan's status was, add mud to the water and blacken Tang Fan's name to death. Pen Yushan blamed himself a bit. He had invited Tang Fan here, after all. Had he insisted upon seeing Tang Fan off at the door, things might not turn out like this. However, he had forgotten that the other was consciously attempting to make trouble for Tang Fan. Regardless of whether he was by his side or not, Tang Fan would have never gotten away. Right when Pen Yushan was about to step forth and put this inconvenience onto himself, he heard Tang Fan say, "You're right. I did indeed come here for this woman." He admitted it himself. Everyone looked at Tang Fan in shock, thinking that he had been angered into losing his composure, and thus had smashed the already broken jar. Yin Qi was also caught off guard, then laughed aloud. "So, you admit it? A stately cabinet Solon ran off to a restaurant to steal someone else's woman. Is this really a minister of our great Ming? With people like you in it, how could this court get any better?" End chapter.